First naughty's experience with a guy has me feeling uneasy. 28M. So last night, after many years of consideration, I had my first naughty's experience with a guy. I always had fantasies and wondered what it'd be like to suck a dick. However, post-nut clarity would always remind me it wasn't a serious desire. Last night, however, I'm not sure why, I decided to go through with it. I found a guy on Grindr and met him in his car down a quiet road. We did the deed, and immediately after I was left with feelings of guilt and shame. The next day, I still regret it massively, and wish I turned around when I hesitated at the top of the road. I realize this was just a fantasy, and I'm certain I'll never do it again. I'm definitely only attracted to women now, however just feel a little tainted by the experience. I'm not overly affected by it, honestly. I feel like this is something I can block from my memory. But I am worried about seeing this guy around town, or worse, having some sort of mutual connection which could potentially expose me. I know there's nothing wrong with exploring. I'm comfortable with my sexuality and understand this is only my internalized homophobia talking. I guess I'm looking for some advice or similar stories to make me feel better. Edit. I really appreciate all the positive comments. The support goes a long way and has definitely helped get my mind straight. I've had a long day of self-reflection and realized I'm the exact same person before any of this happened. In fact, I'm way more sure on who I am, and that feels fucking great. I'm certain that after a few weeks or so, I won't think about it half as much, and it will just become another stupid experience which helped shape me. These things happen to build self-awareness and confidence in life, so maybe I am almost grateful for it. Thanks again, all. Asked kid to line up shoes. There were 6, 7 shoes jumbled by the door, and I asked son, elementary school, what's that in other countries, primary school, to line them up. We also happened to have a box for extra shoes right there. So obviously he lined up the shoes. The shoes are now lined up beautifully, 3 pairs deep. ETA. This particular row of shoes is tucked along the side of a high traffic area right inside our garage door. So while the original 6, 7 jumbled pairs of shoes fit fine, I now have 3 rows of beautifully lined up shoes jutting out into the pathway. My dad told me I should pay him back for the child support. OG posted in choosing beggars, but got told to add here. Told her. My dad thought I was rich, so he wanted me to pay him back the $2K, at most, my mother stole from him each year for child support of 2 kids. We did week on, week off. I'm a bit fuzzy on the details now, blocked memories and all that, but I remember one day after working at a restaurant from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. No lunch, barista, bartender, server, and dish pig. My dad cornered me and said since I was so rich, I wasn't. I was a manager making less than the junior staff. I should pay him back on all the child support my mother stole from him. He then showed me the letters he kept, and with the way he went on and on over the year, I expected it to be thousands per month. Sure, I went to private school, but they chose to send me there before they even got divorced. The plan had originally been to go there from pre-primary, but they, missed the cutoff, so I went from year 7, 12. Also, the cost for the school was done separately, outside of child support. So what it was used for was uniforms, swimming lessons, healthcare/Medicare, phone plan, until I turned 16. Then I paid for my own with help from Mum to top it off occasionally, as I used my phone as a hotspot so my sister could do homework. Dad didn't want to pay for Wi-Fi as we would waste it, long story. The rest they dealt with on their own / just paid it if it was their week. So basically, he paid fuck all, about $15-20 per week for 2 kids. For a year I listed to him guilt me on it, try and twist us against our mum, and sometimes it worked. Have him say he couldn't afford food because of us. All to find out he paid practically nothing. He worked as a locksmith and then a motorbike mechanic in a specialized area. Then went back to being a locksmith. I'm not in contact with him now, obviously. My sister lives with him still, but we're fine. She comes over to stay at mine pretty often, mostly for the Wi-Fi. But she prefers Dad's to Mum as she has issues with our mum, longer story there. He just took my sister OB a week-long trip to Bali, all expenses paid. She's 20 and hasn't had a job for over a year. When I last lived with him, I was the cook, the cleaner, the caretaker of my sister, the dog walker, and the person putting myself in the middle deliberately to avoid hospital visits/animal abuse. But yeah, that my dad. A begging man child. Grandma Angie's petty revenge. I am lucky enough to have had my grandmother in my life for 52 years. She was unalived last year at the age of 106, on her 106.5 birthday to be exact. And until her final illness, she remained mentally sharp even as her body struggled. I am the oldest of her grandchildren, one of two girls, she had only sons, and between my sister and me, the jewelry lover. I mention this because literally everyone in the family, myself included, thought I would inherit her wedding set, her only valuable jewelry, both financially and sentimentally. Yes, that makes me sound entitled, but we all had the same assumption, including my wonderful sister, who did receive the rings. How is this petty revenge? Picture it, Bay Area, California, 1990-something. Grandma Angie had given me a few pieces of jewelry for various birthdays and other special occasions starting when I was about 16. I loved them all and was grateful for her thoughtfulness and generosity. That is, until she bought me the carousel ring. I was maybe 20 or 21 and had small hands. This ring was gold and looked how I imagined the top of a carousel, or maybe circus tent, would look from above. It was, in my young and sassy opinion, ugly. It was also objectively too large by several sizes, but though I was sassy, I was not brave or confrontational. So instead of womaning up and gently telling Grandma it wasn't my style, but I'd love it if we picked out something else together, I exchanged it for a pair of earrings, which I still have, and told her that the jeweler told me it could not be sized down small enough for my finger. I lied. But Grandma was smart, and probably saw right through me. She went back to the jeweler, and the next time I saw her, she was wearing the carousel ring and made a comment about how it was sized to fit her perfectly. Still, I didn't confess. Only after she passed and left her wedding set to my sister, who burst into happy tears, had it sized and repaired so it fits her, and wears it every day, did I begin to realize that Grandma had never bought me another piece of jewelry in the 30-plus years we had left together after the carousel ring. I didn't notice because she was super loving, generous, and thoughtful, and also supremely careful to be fair to all her grandchildren. For example, she helped me in college by paying for my textbooks. My sisters were more expensive when she went to college, and Grandma cut me a check for the difference without my asking. I never would have. So in every other way, she was fiercely fair, but her final petty revenge was had, all because my younger self didn't have the courage to tell her I didn't like an ugly ring. P.S. The carousel ring wasn't designated for anyone specifically, but my siblings and cousins thought it should be mine, and so it is. I still don't wear it. My parents threatened to throw me out but call the police when I move out TW, mentions of abuse. So a few months ago, just before my 19th birthday, I broke phone, had a breakdown and threw it. As my parents have always violent and neglectful, I was frightened, and as they have been threatening to throw me out because I couldn't find a job, mind you, my mother haven't had one in 2 years, I decided to get my credit card back from my mother's bag and run away. My card was blocked, which means my mother had tried using it, so with no phone and money I was on the street. They called the police on me saying I got abducted, and the cops told me I had to go back because I wasn't safe on the street. When I told them about how unsafe I was with my parents, they told me, well, they said they were willing to buy you expensive art supplies and take to a tea shop and things like that. So I went back because I had nowhere else to go. My GF and were together for only 2 months, and she was in a bad place financially. And best friend's family couldn't afford to feed me, even though they said they would. Now we're 10 months later, my parents didn't keep any of their promises, except that my father is getting an autism diagnosis to, I hope, work on his emotional regulation, and I am planning to move in with my GF. It's getting better. It always does. Want ambulances to travel faster than the speed of light? No. In light of all the generic AI slop trash this sub has been flooded with, I figured I'd give my MC story that I've been holding on to for a while. It's been many years since I worked for the company this relates to. But if you have any knowledge of the industry, then you know it's an acronym for my ride. Being a private ambulance company, they acquired the contract to provide transport of patients to the hospital when they call 911. The city-county pays a flat rate in the contract to make sure that an ambulance responds and arrives on scene within 8 minutes and 59 seconds from the time of dispatch. On top of that, our company was allowed to bill the patient's insurance for the transportation and cost of treatment. Given our location, that is a pretty reasonable criteria. Per the contract, we were allowed to have 10% of our response times to be what was called late response, meaning we arrived on scene 9 minutes or later. This on-time versus late ratio was what we called compliance. 98% compliance, we're golden. 89% compliance. Emails started going out and phones started ringing. The thing is, we had to maintain daily compliance. We could have 0 compliance from midnight to 3 a.m., but as long as the compliance picked up and we met 90% or greater by midnight the end of the day, we were considered compliant. But here's the real kicker. Our management was the only entity responsible for reporting compliance to the county, and that means numbers were scrubbed and fudged upside down, left and right. They used special delays or exemptions that would drop the response times from the reports and consider them outliers. Generally used for if an ambulance is delayed by a train crossing, construction, severe weather conditions, etc. But management abused these delays in their reports to maintain compliance. Now, being responsible for the safety and care of critically sick or injured people, you'd think that they would adequately staff the ambulances to handle the population of our service area and throw a little extra staff on top just to be safe and make sure they could handle anything that happens, right? Ha. No, they're trying to make money. If they can maintain compliance with less people, they did it. Hell, even if they couldn't make compliance, they'd use the delay exemptions to make it look like they were compliant. But it's not like anyone was auditing them anyways. We were simply understaffed. We constantly ran at what's called level 0, in which the level refers to the number of ambulances available to respond to calls. If corporate had their way, if you could run a level 0 constantly and still make compliance, we would be operating at peak efficiency, and the shareholders were happy. We were pressured to unsafely blow through stop signs and red lights, drive faster than reasonably necessary. Hell, even our supervisor taught us the trick of using the cruise control to bypass the speed limiter on our trucks. We were tired, overworked, and spent more time driving in high-stress environments than the DOT would ever even let truck drivers get close to. We complained to the union, we tried whistleblowing to the county, but nothing changed. We'd had it. The contract renewal was coming up. We had to be perfect with response times and look good so we could secure the next 4 years of service. But we all agreed. Enough was enough. We started following the laws regarding Code 3 driving, lights and sirens. We stopped at every stop sign or red light. We drove no faster than we deemed safe for conditions. We sandbagged the ever-living fuck out of our response times and drove compliance straight into the ground. Unless the response was absolutely critical, every belly ache and stubbed toe, which was 90% of our calls, we took our reasonable, sweet-ass time getting there. The exemptions couldn't even mask the failure of our compliance. 2 weeks in and many meetings with supervision, they couldn't write us up for being safer, and they started to staff more ambulances to regain compliance in time for the end of the month. It lasted a while, but I sought out employment elsewhere and haven't looked back since. I missed the job, but not the company. Dad won't let me, 23M, move in with my family friend because of jewelry. Update. Good morning, how's everyone day going so far? 23. So 2 months ago I came on this subreddit and posted about how my parents were obstructing me from moving in with my family friends due to their religious beliefs. I was finally able to move out after a long battle and framing arguments. It was not easy at first due to their strict rules and policy. I was obstructed for so long due to a piece of jewelry. Life has been great since I moved out and live without my parents. I'm finally able to make decisions on my own and live my life as an adult with no restrictions. I want to appreciate those on my old post who gave me great advices on how to cope with situations like this. I tried to have a logical conversation with my parents, but nothing was changing until I had to force myself out of the house. It was very toxic at first last month and my self-esteem was ruined. Now I finally feel like a man and not some kid being sheltered and overprotected by parents. I'm grateful for all the help and support I received from the community. I did not think it was possible for me to move out at the age of 23, and now I actually look forward to life again with the freedom I have just obtained. It's been a week so far, but everything is blessed, and I'm happy to pursue my goals without any setbacks and do my own stuff. Link is referenced to old post below. Dad won't let me, 23M, move in with my family friend because of jewelry. https://www.reddit.com/r/entitled-parents/s/mfu3mgbopi. I found out his secret, and it's bad. Back in May, this cutie messaged me on Reddit wanting to get to know me better. It was low stakes BC1. He's 14 years younger than me, and 2, in a different country on the other side of the world. He was charming, and I was single. He checked in almost every day and said he loved hearing from me. Of course, he being a straight man and I being sort of craving that kind of attention, it got spicy. It's no surprise it was kind of an ego boost for me getting attention from a young, fit man, even from far away. Fast forward about a month and he ends it abruptly. Said, "We have a slight problem," and then he drops, "I've met someone and I plan on giving my all to her." And when I confronted him, because his delivery was tactless, he said, "How are you allowed to have a friend asterisk, and then when I find someone I get treated like this?" He disparaged me for catching feelings, and really a lot of dumb shit like that. No empathy whatsoever. He really did make me feel like an old lovelorn spinster, and I hated that. BC, even if it was some online thing, it meant something to me. So anyway, it's been a few months. My bitterness has mostly faded, and now it's a random story about my dumb love life. Was curious, so I Googled him. Turns out he has an FB under his name in a different language. Navigate to it. Y'all. He just got married last weekend. To someone it seems he had been with for a long time. Like, much longer than this past summer. Looks like he's been lurking on Reddit, meeting strangers and having long-distance naughties relationships. As recently as 3 days ago, he continues to do so. He also has a Snap. He also has a sort of GoFundMe to help him as his job doesn't pay over the summer, or so he says. Wedding looked like a nice affair. Was he just soliciting money to steal from people? What the hell, Yanta? He is all kinds of shady. Anyway, part of me sort of knew there was something shady about him, but I had no idea. He is all shades of sociopath. And this is exactly why I don't engage W people on Reddit anymore. Manager says I must chat in the group chat. So I do. In every language but English. So I've been working remotely for almost 6 years now, but I recently joined a new company with a new team leader. I could tell right away this guy was freshly promoted. You know that vibe when someone's trying a little asterisk, too hard asterisk to flex authority? Yeah, that. My job is to talk with clients. That's it. My team leader isn't even looped into those conversations, so honestly, I barely have any reason to chat with him day to day. Naturally, I don't really hop into the team group chat unless it's work-related or someone tags me directly. Fast forward to my 3rd monthly review. All my KPIs were perfect. However, my team lead docked my score because I wasn't engaging enough in the team chat. Apparently, saying good morning and joining in on non-work chatter was required to show team spirit. I pointed out it's not in the metrics, never has been, and in 6 years of remote work I've never once been penalized for not spamming greetings into a chat box. His response? As long as you're on my team, you need to chat, even just a hello or goodbye. Cue malicious compliance. Every morning I started posting good morning and every evening goodbye, but in a different language every day. Monday, Korean, Tuesday, Spanish, Wednesday, Greek. You get the idea. At first, my lead thought it was funny. Then the rest of the team joined in, but they were all using Google Translate. And well, let's just say a lot got lost in translation. Some sentences even got flagged by our system, and eventually the general manager, his boss, had to ask what on earth was happening. Suddenly my team leader wasn't laughing anymore. He DM'd me saying, "Please just greet in English from now on." Then he threatened that if I didn't stop, he'd report me to the GM. So far, I'm 3 weeks in, still greeting the team in whatever language I feel like, still waiting for that GM call. I want anyone to remember her. I've made one post here before. This time it isn't about my parents, but a friend's. I'm writing this not knowing if I'll ever see her again, but I'm trying to hold hope I will. I want you to read this. I want you to remember her, even if just for a little while, because I won't be able to forget her, ever. I guess this all starts about a month ago. I was playing on my PlayStation when someone joined me. We talked for a while, hours passed, and we said our goodbyes. Typical encounter, nothing special. This was the first time I met her. I'll call her Angel. We played almost daily, talked, helped each other with whatever we needed in game. This was until 2 weeks ago. We decided to play a different game, so she added me on PlayStation. We played and talked more than I've ever talked before. She opened up to me, talked to me about her struggle with trust. I made it a point to her that I was truly enjoying my time with her, that I was going to stay. Her thank you felt so sincere. A couple of days later, it would all become much more serious than I ever thought it would be. I felt comfortable around her, so I opened up to her. I told her everything, my struggle with making connections, my lack of understanding of my own emotions, my constant stress of making the wrong choice of words and making our friendship crumble because of it. And she listened. In the moment, I asked her a question that I didn't even know I needed to so badly. Am I a burden to you? She didn't hesitate to deny it, and I felt so relieved I cried for minutes. It took an hour for everything to calm down. After another hour or so, I felt that I needed to make something clear to her, so I did. I feel like I should make this clear. I'm not thinking about unaliving. You don't have to worry about that. She didn't respond for a little bit. Then she did. Well, I am, but I don't want you to worry about me. I've never had my hands shake like in that moment. I had my suspicions, but having her confirm it felt like my whole world was crumbling. Of course, I let her know that wasn't possible, that I would worry for her. She understood and we moved on, just for a couple of minutes. I felt the need to ask, and I don't regret doing so, as much as it hurts to know now. You know, I've said a lot, but you haven't. Anything you want to talk about? She refused, saying, You already have enough problems of your own. I don't want to give you mine as well. I told her it was fine, and that I wanted to hear her out just as she did for me. So she told me a story. A couple of months ago, she was sent to a therapist. Her mom took her there due to her depressed state. When she got there, she talked to the therapist for a bit. After a bit of talking, the therapist deemed her an immediate threat to herself and was sent to the hospital to be monitored. Her mom was complaining the whole time, calling it a waste of time. A little after her dad arrived, he immediately made a scene, getting loud and aggressive, so the hospital called security. Her mom walked up to her and told her to tell the nurses everything is fine, so we can leave. She didn't feel that way, but agreed under her mom's pressure. She told me more, something that made me so mad for her. She said she had done self-harm before, and that her parents had seen the aftermath but didn't care enough to do anything about it. I asked her for a promise. If you ever do that again, can you tell me? She agreed. And now we move on to 2 days ago. We were playing for a couple of hours up until this point. Then she got stuck in the middle of an ocean with no stamina, so she made the joke. What do I do now? Just KMs. My hands froze when she said it, so I asked her if we could not make jokes like that anymore. She agreed and apologized. I asked her about the promise and she fell silent. She continued to hesitate to answer until she just said, I'm sorry, I immediately asked. When? She said 3 a.m. Just 3 hours before we were talking at that time. I understood that in between of us talking, she took a break to do it. I asked why, and she just said she couldn't help it. I asked if I had involved myself too much in her struggles. She answered, Look, I'm sorry, but I think my issues are way beyond help. I felt helpless, and I still do, because I am. There's nothing I can do but hope it doesn't happen. I have no real way of helping her. So I asked her something. If I lose you, will I ever know? She answered, If I choose something more permanent, you'll be the first one to know. I agreed, and made sure to tell her I would keep trying to help her, however I could. After half an hour or so, she had to leave for a doctor's appointment. She kept her PlayStation on and stayed with me for comfort. I soon fell asleep waiting for her to come back. I woke up an hour later and she was back, just running around waiting for me to wake up. We talked for a bit longer until she fell asleep. I waited, kept my PlayStation on with hers, and waited for 8 hours. She finally woke up and we talked for just a couple of minutes. She suddenly logged off for 2 days. About 3 hours from when I'm making this post, she logged back in. I messaged her, "Hey." She didn't respond until 10 minutes later, saying, "Keytarn, can't talk right now." Something we decided on if she ever was around her family and couldn't speak to me. Then said, "Lost my PS4. I felt a bit of relief at this, knowing she simply couldn't get back at me, but then she blocked me. Just blocked, and I know she didn't do it herself, but her parents. So now I'm sitting here on my bed, wishing the next message I see of her is how she got her PS4 back and how we can get back to hanging out. But I'm scared that won't be the message, but instead, a goodbye letting me know she'll never be online ever again. So I want you to remember her just as I do. Someone who helped me overcome my fear of interaction, even if just with her. Someone who loves animals and feeds a cat that spends its time at her front door. Someone who, even while struggling to communicate, still wants to help people. Someone who deserves so much more than what she's been given. Someone who might have saved my life. Please remember her for a bit. Update. I guess I should update this since it's been a bit over 2 weeks now. Nothing has happened. No sign of her. Her ACC is still offline, now marking 16 days. I won't lie and say I'm still just as hopeful as ever, but I'll keep waiting. Car salespeople should not judge a book by its cover. When I was just 20, I landed a lucrative development contract with a company in the city, their Walsint, and as a result found myself the director of a small computer company. In the 80s in the UK, most new cars on the road were company cars because it was very tax efficient. So I called a local Ford dealer to set up a test drive of one of their higher-end cars. Not that Fords were particularly high-end, but it was their top-of-the-line performance model, and I'm sure they made a nice profit on them. We made an appointment for a test drive, but when I showed up, the salesman took one look at me and told me that the car was not available. He was very dismissive, and when I pointed out that we had an appointment, he said, "Yeah, well, we don't have a car." No apology. Nothing, just a satisfied smirk. I told him, "Okay, when you do get a car, maybe you can give me a call." I handed him one of my newly minted business cards with Director as the title. Suddenly he was very interested, but I was over it at that point, and walked out while he followed me explaining that he had made a mistake, and they did have a car after all. I didn't bother, just continued to walk out. I bought that exact car from a different dealer a few towns over about a week later. The first service was at 600 miles and was included in the purchase price. But I could take it to any Ford dealer, so I made a point of going to the one that had ignored me. The service desk was very close to the salesman's desk, so I made a big show of handing over the key to my new car and loudly letting them know that it was here for the 600-mile service. The sales guy looked over and looked pretty sick. He knew he had missed out on an easy commission. Daughters of the desert, faces uncovered. We were at the hospital again, me and my father. A place so familiar it felt like a recurring dream I never asked for. Same sterile halls, same stretched out time. I used to walk these corridors with him when I was younger, back when I was just entering puberty, becoming a woman. That was the turning point. He used to adore me. I was his favorite, spoiled daughter. Then one day, I became a threat. He couldn't handle my body changing, couldn't handle the idea that his daughter might be seen the way he feared women being seen. So he tried to erase me, with shame, silence, and force. He made me cover, not through gentle guidance, but guilt and control. I remember fighting back. I remember the protests. I lost, and I locked myself in a world of my own, promising I'd one day leave and never look back. Years later, here we were again. He's older now, frail, needing help. We waited for hours at the hospital. Eventually, he snapped, lashed out at me in public, loudly, carelessly, but I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, calm and firm. My eyes said, "You're doing too much, Baba. Tune it down." That was all, and it was enough. He stormed off like a man running from his own helplessness. But I stayed still. I didn't break. I didn't explain. I didn't fight. I just was. Later, he made me walk him to a nurse station trying to use me, a doctor, to skip the queue. I went. and as we passed a woman, fully covered, likely from the Bedouin desert tribes, she looked at me and said, "Cover up." For most of my life, I'd been taught to stay silent, to be polite, to swallow insults from people like her. Not today. I turned my head to her and said clearly, loudly, and without apology, "None of your business." That's when I knew I had changed. I wasn't reacting like the girl I once was. I was wearing an abaya stitched by my aunt, full of color and tribal patterns, the kind women in my family wore before the Sawa, before Wahhabism, before shame became law. I showed my face, just like my grandmother and great-grandmothers did. My body wasn't hidden, my voice wasn't silenced. I didn't dress in rebellion. I dressed in remembrance, in reclamation. I've realized men like my father sexualized everything, because they were raised in systems that gave them no emotional language, only dominance, shame, and paranoia. My brother once told me, if Baba had a handsome son, he would have been sick with worry too. But you were a beautiful daughter. He panicked. He was trying to protect me, in the worst way possible. My father once apologized for how he raised us. That mattered. But healing didn't come from his words. It came from this moment, me choosing not to carry it anymore. I walked out of that hospital today not as his broken daughter, but as a woman who stood still in the face of shame and didn't flinch. I cheated on my long-distance BF and I feel terrible. I'm an 18-year-old girl from Indonesia. A while ago, a seemingly cute guy messaged me on Instagram. He slid into my DMs, and at first he seemed like a genuinely great person. Long story short, we fell in love. He wasn't exactly my type. Younger than me, not very good-looking, and quite shy. But he had this perfect guy vibe. Within weeks, we were talking about everything, even marriage and kids, though we both knew not to rush things. Despite being younger, he was far more mature than I expected. I was surprised by how thoughtful and caring he was. He told me every detail of his day, never made me feel ignored, and gave me his full attention. He even opened up about his past trauma, and I truly fell for him hard. He was a real gentleman. But I made a mistake. I started nudging him toward more intimate things. Since he was shy, he rarely sent me pictures, but I kept pressuring him until he eventually agreed. I started by sharing my own pictures, even some intimate ones, and eventually he sent some too, though it took a lot of convincing. After we'd shared so much and knew so much about each other, a friend suggested I test him using another account. I went through with it and he passed perfectly. But later, he found out about the test. He didn't overreact, but he was clearly upset. He told me that I could have at least told him it was a test after he passed it. A little later, one of my male friends, someone I'd known for a while, messaged me. At first, I ignored him because I was trying to patch things up with my boyfriend. But then my boyfriend said he needed time to cool his head and left without much explanation, which was unusual for him. While he was gone, I ended up replying to my friend. He flirted with me, and I flirted back. Within minutes, we were exchanging intimate pictures. I knew it was wrong, so stupid, and I immediately felt horrible. I confessed everything to my boyfriend. He broke up with me, but even then, he handled it with so much maturity. I was his first girlfriend, and I can't believe I hurt someone so genuine. His personality was something rare, even miraculous, and I'll truly miss him, even if he wasn't the most attractive person. I don't think I will find someone as good as him ever. Entitled parent tries to make my daughter move out of her space in line because her daughter is tired of waiting her turn. During my recent 3-week vacation, my daughter was in line waiting her turn in line for the activity she wanted to do with her twin sister and 4 cousins, which was bumper boats. They were among people who were closer in line to having their turn once the current group was done. A few ways away in the line, a kid was complaining to their mom when it's going to be their turn. The mom apparently had enough and tried shoving her way towards where my daughters and nieces were and demanded they move so that her daughter could take one of their places. One of my daughters said, "Look, lady, you can't bully yourself in front of the line and tell your daughter, 'Here's your spot, princess.' She's got to wait her turn like everyone else." The woman, according to my daughter, started turning red and yelled at the 6 to move again. Still, the 6 don't move. Just as the woman goes to attempt to slap my daughter, thankfully, a staff member showed up and told her to collect her daughter and get out of the line, Her daughter and her are not allowed in the line. They lost their privilege to use the bumper boats. Before the woman can say anything, she just storms off with her daughter when the staff motions they're going for the walkie-talkie in their pocket. But staff still made the call for security to find the woman and get her as well her daughter out. After their turn was over, my daughter told me what had happened, and we hear a woman screaming, "You're all a bunch of sobs! Sons of bees." We then hear a girl scream, "Stop it, Mom! You're embarrassing me!" Be nice to drive-through workers. 1985. I was a teenager working the drive-through at a fast food restaurant at the beach in SoCal. A van with 6 obnoxious surfer dudes drove up and were being deliberately obnoxious with their order, rude, screaming, making everything difficult. They eventually ordered 6 burgers, screaming "extra sauce" after every one. I took the order and ran back into the kitchen and told the grill cook that I'm going to make their order. If you've ever worked in fast food prep, you know you line up the buns, you pour a quarter-size drop of sauce on the bun, then the pickles/lettuce/tomato/burger/bottom bun, and then you wrap it up. So I put the buns down, covered them in sauce until you couldn't see them. Pickles, asterisk covered asterisk in sauce, tomatoes, asterisk covered asterisk the in sauce, lettuce, asterisk covered asterisk it in sauce, and did this with each layer, and asterisk covered asterisk the top of the bun in sauce dot. Then I asterisk covered asterisk the burger wrapper in sauce, and wrapped it around the burger carefully. I had to triple bag the burgers because they were dripping and absolutely soggy with jumbo jack sauce. The bag felt like it weighed 10 extra pounds with all that sauce. I ran back up to the window, took their money, was as pleasant as could be, and handed them their bag. Here is the sweet part. I did not give them any napkins. I think about cheating. It's more than the title. I, 20M, have been in the best relationship of my life for the last 2.5 years. I love my girlfriend. I plan to marry her. Tiny issue. We're long distance. She goes to college 6 hours away. We still see each other at least once a month, but it's not enough for me. First off, I will look at subs like r/____ gone wild. I don't want to dox myself, and have even though about posting for R4Rs, but I can't bring myself to do it. I get there and want something, but then I stop myself. I don't want to risk anything. I love her so much. Second issue, she thinks porn is cheating. I understand her angle, but I don't fully agree. I do also think I am addicted, though. Hopefully, if we get married and live together, these feelings fade. Parents celebrate kids' party in a pub. So this happened like maybe 2 years ago, but I was recently reminded of it and decided to share. There's this pub type of place in my town that I like to go to. They serve food that's really good quality, actually, and they make their own beer. Like you can see the beer making containers as an extension of the bar because it's all in glass. Anyway, clearly it's an adult place to hang out. It was winter, a month that was extremely cold in winter, and I was grabbing a few beers with a friend. In comes a group of about 5, 6 parents and about 15 kids. Awesome. The parents are chilling, drinking beer, and their kids are literally running around like shrieking monsters. The worst part was that they weren't just running inside or outside. They would run out of one door of the bar and enter through the other, chasing each other. That meant that the doors were constantly open, and it was freezing inside. The bartender asked them to calm their kids, and they did, for about 15, 20 mins when they forgot the kids existed again, and they started doing the same thing. Me and friend just decided to leave to a bar next door that also sold their beers but didn't have any food, and thus no stupid parents that think just because a place serves burgers and fries, it means you can celebrate your small kid's birthday party in a bar? There should be a test you need to pass to have a kid, I teach. 30 minutes or 2+ hours, your call. Context. I'm a paramedic that works semi-rural, 1-hour drive to hospital. We work 12-hour shifts from 6-6. Commonly, we would arrive at 5:30 so the off-coming crew could go home earlier after handover of equipment. Anyway, the 5:30 arrival time was a gentleman's agreement, so that the off-coming crew wouldn't have to attend a call-out that would put them over their finish time and potentially breach their 14 hours maximum working time. Local driving laws can't be working for more than 14 hours if your job involves driving, At 14 hours, you must stop driving no matter where you are unless you have a critical patient. Occasionally, a job would come in during that 5:30, 6 period which the new shift would take, and then claim the early start as overtime. Standard practice here, normally never a problem. One day the manager sends out an email stating that no staff should be turning up early and starting work before 6 because it was costing too much in overtime. So that's what we all did. Every single crew, which was 30+ staff. At the peak of winter, which is usually one of the busiest times of the year, it sucked finishing late a fair bit, but making the boss pay us 2+ hours of overtime and giving them the headache of driving us back to station once we breached 14 hours instead of paying for 30 minutes was great. After 2 months of hemorrhaging money in overtime payments, we get another email. You can now go back to the 5:30 arrangement. Site super demands our tools are properly organized, so we followed his exact instructions. I've been doing construction for 15 years. Our crew of 8 had been working this office complex project together for 18 months, with a good supervisor who was easy to work with and trusted us to do our jobs. The super was in his 60s and was about to retire. The last night we had an awesome night out to see him off after a long career for his well-deserved retirement. The next week his replacement arrived, Derek, fresh out of construction management school, maybe 24, with exactly one previous job site under his belt. Dude shows up with a clipboard and an attitude. After a week of observing us, which seemed to involve texting back and forth with his girlfriend while commenting on our work, Derek calls a meeting and announces a new rule. Every tool must be returned to its designated position immediately after each use. No exceptions. Anyone who's actually done construction knows this is insane. When you're hanging drywall, you use your drill, then your level, then your pencil, then your tape measure, then back to the drill. Putting each tool away after every single use would triple your work time. I tried explaining this. Derek wasn't interested in input from people who'd been doing this since before he was a gleam in his daddy's eye, so we gave Derek exactly what he wanted. Monday morning, we started putting every single tool back in its designated spot after every single use. Installing one outlet box became a 45-minute task. Grab drill, use it, walk back to the toolbox, organize it perfectly. Grab level, use it, walk back, organize it perfectly. Repeat for every single tool. What normally takes 10 minutes is now taking 45 minutes. But our tools were perfectly organized at all times. By Tuesday afternoon, Derek was getting frantic calls about why we were so far behind schedule. He came over, red-faced, demanding to know what was taking so long. Just following your efficiency protocols, boss. Every tool back immediately after use like you said. Derek tried backpedaling, saying he meant when you're done with a task. I pulled out my phone and played back the recording of his speech where he specifically said, immediately after each use, no exceptions. By Thursday, the project manager was on site asking why productivity had dropped 75%. When he found out about Derek's tool policy, he looked at Derek like he'd grown a second head. Derek got transferred the following Monday. Our old super came back to fill in until a replacement could be found, took one look at us obsessively organizing tools, and said, "Cut it out, you idiots. We've got work to do." We finished 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Talk to the hand. I've commented about this, I think it fits here. In the late 80s, I was asked to work at my pharmacy job full-time during summer break from college. I was the only young full-time worker, and the only male among a clique of mom to grandma-aged women mostly working mother's hours. My half-hour lunch was supposed to start at noon, but for some reason my relief just wouldn't show up no matter how often I paged them. 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour or more. It didn't bother me, so I didn't complain about it. That first Friday, I finally get to break a little after 1 p.m., and the store manager comes in and starts telling me she has had multiple complaints that I have been screwing up everyone's break schedule and how disappointed she is in me. I try to tell her that my relief is not showing up, and she actually does the hand thing where she just puts her hand in my face and says, "SM. Starting next week, I want you back on main register at 12:30 sharp. No excuses." So next Monday, I start paging my relief at 4:15. At 5 I call for second or backup register who is surprised since there is only one customer. I tell her to open second register. I close main, lock my drawer in the office, and punch out right at noon sharp. About 10 minutes later, the store manager comes running into the break room in a panic asking why main register is closed. There's a line, and more importantly, why is main register closed? Me. On Friday, you told me I had to be off main register at noon sharp, no excuses. SM. That's not what I said. Me. Did you say starting next week I have to be back on main register at 12:30 sharp? No excuses. SM. Yes, that's what I said. Me. And is my break a half hour long? SM. SM. Can you please punch back in and take care of the line? I'll find your relief. My relief showed up at 5 to noon for the rest of the summer. Entitled parents say I have no riz. Basically, I work at a supermarket and I see a lot of entitled parents. One of my most recent stories happened just last week. For reference, EM, =, entitled mum, ED, =, entitled dad, S =, their bratty son. Well, it began a little after I took the tills. EM. Hi, well, this pack of chocolate cakes is meant to be 2 pounds, but I scanned it and it said 4 pounds. Me. Yes, but the promotion finished. Now they're back to normal price. Sorry. Ed. How dare you talk to my wife like that? I'm a calm person. But his shouting annoyed me. Me. Look, if you don't stop shouting, I won't serve you, EM. Sorry, but the website said 2 pounds. Me. That was last week. S. Gimme chocolate cake, I want. I remained silent at the son's entitlement. ED. Look, just between us, reduce it. Me. I can't. The boss will be angry then. S. The man has no riz, M. You're right. Son's name. He has no riz, ED. Just scan the rest of our shopping and we'll go. Suffice to say, when the son was leaving, he stuck his tongue out at me and knocked the shelf over. We'll share more stories when I have the time. After 2 years, got paid by a stuck-up daddy's boy. 2 years ago, I drove into a parking lot with my wife and kids. There seemingly was only one place left, but a BMW was towed in at the front and left almost no room. I talked to the attendant, and she said that was the last spot. The system handles capacity automatically. So I carefully drove in and parked. About 3 cm from the other car, I had to get out of mine through the passenger side. When we went to leave, the BMW was gone and 2 of my tires were flat. I called the parking attendant over and showed her. She called her manager, who said they'd send someone within the hour. My wife and the kids took a taxi home and I stayed there waiting. But I was pissed and called the police and asked the manager for the video. They would have given me the video without an official police complaint, so I made one, and the manager then had me contact their legal department to take it from there. A few minutes after finishing up all of this police and legal stuff, the mechanic showed up, filled my tires, and I went home. I had to hound the parking company for almost 3 months until they sent the police a copy of the video. 3 times. The first time it was the wrong camera, and the second it was the right camera but wrong time frame. Once the police had the full video, I was able to amend my original complaint to vandalism and directly identify the guy that did it from the camera and license plate. A few more months, and I get a letter inviting me to an arbitration. I reply refusing and say that this will be handled through the judicial system. I add this arbitration offer to my complaint. A week later, I get a call from Daddy's lawyer offering me a few thousand souls to forget about this. The kid was mad and made a mistake. I should be reasonable, not let this go too far, etc. I tell him no to everything and ask to not be contacted again. A few more weeks go by. I think this would be about 6 months after the incident. And I get a court date, 11 months in the future, January of this year. Every couple of months, I get a call with different offers from different lawyers to drop the case, all of which I make sure to amend to the case documentation. When the court date finally comes, the guy is there with Daddy and their lawyer and me with mine. They make one last effort to work out a deal, but I deny again. The case is over pretty quickly, as the video is horribly damning to this guy's case. You can clearly see him walk up, look at my car, make a few angry gestures, then pull out his car, get out, and deflate my tires. There wasn't much he could say in his defense. The adjudication goes in my favor, and the verdict is common vandalism, and is assigned 50 days fine at 50%, which works out to around $1,700 USD, plus 90 days of home arrest. They appealed, but this was thrown out a few weeks ago, And just last week I got the news that the verdict is now final. The payment deadline has been set to October 10th of this year, or else home arrest becomes jail time. They called yesterday asking for my bank account and aid the transfer today. So Monday I'm reporting payment received and the end of this 2-year journey. So Martin, I don't know if you use Reddit or not, but enjoy your home arrest. And too bad your university doesn't accept home arrest as a valid excuse, and you'll lose all credits this cycle. Maybe think about that next time you want to screw with someone else's stuff. Second-class consulting engineer. Years ago, I worked as a consulting engineer at this company with a very tightwad CEO with multiple sticks up his butt. Everyone else was super nice. I engineered a machine that shipped to the Far East and was asked to go on site to start up the system. This was in the Northeast in February. I parked on an off-site parking lot to save my client the expense of parking at the airport and flew out on a cold, clear day and landed at my destination many hours later. I spent 2+ weeks working long hours to start up this machine. So many hours that I felt bad for my client and decided that I would not charge OT. Fast forward to my departure. I asked for limo service home because the car was frozen solid and I'd flown some 20+ hours and was severely sleep deprived. Nope. Only full-time employees get limo service. Consulting engineers have to drive themselves, decreed the CEO. I decided to charge full OT to the letter for every hour over 8, especially the all-nighter I pulled while there. It was the most expensive $80 limo ride he never paid for. I studied university for 3 years, but I didn't learn anything. I'm very worried about the situation I'm going through, but I had to get it out of my chest. 3 years ago, I started the degree in accounting and finance in online mode. At first, I was very excited, and with all the attitude, I felt that I was doing the right thing for my future. But little by little, I realized that, although I was passing the subjects, I was not really learning. I must confess that I copied assignments, studied just enough to pass exams. Sometimes I paid for all the homework of the subject. I do not justify myself, but I had other duties that prevented me from being 100% glued to the race. My parents think I'm an exemplary student. In fact, in 2 months I graduate, and my dad wants me to take the position of the accounting area of the family business. He blindly trusts that I can do it, and that is unalive me inside. But the reality is that I don't know how to make a financial statement from scratch. I don't understand taxes well, and I panic disappointing my parents. But I feel that I don't have the necessary bases to take control of a company. It's a very big responsibility. I'm caught between the guilt for not having taken advantage of the race and the fear of facing what's coming. Waste my time. Because your accounts team are hopeless, I'll fine you £20. Some years ago, I took a series of evening classes at the local uni. The fees were payable at the beginning of each term, and you paid a reduced fee if you settled within 2 weeks of being billed. As money was a bit hand-to-mouth at the time, I often missed the early payment slot and ended up paying the full amount. Annoying when you are already short of cash, but rules is rules. I completed the course that July and thought no more about it. However, in the July of the following year, I received a terse letter from the university accounts department, threatening legal action if I didn't clear an outstanding invoice for the final term of the previous year. Now, the tone of the letter rubbed me up the wrong way, especially as I had paid. Fortunately, I'd kept all of the receipts for my course fees in my coursework file, which I still had. Hence, I sent copies of all of the receipts to the university, showing that I had paid, and asked them to ensure my details were updated to reflect this. I received no reply. July the following year, I got another threatening letter saying my final term's fees from 2 years previously were still outstanding, and they were going to pursue legal action. This really rubbed me up the wrong way, as I'd already wasted enough time on this issue, and this sort of incompetence riles me more than it should. Once again, I dug out my receipts, and the letter I sent the previous year and included them as attachments to a very terse, bordering on rude, letter of my own. However, while I was drafting that letter, I noticed that the sum they claimed was outstanding was the amount you paid if you settled the bill early. My receipt was for the late payment fee, which was £20 higher. I saw a chance of some petty revenge, not only to take advantage of their incompetence, but to also force them to update their records. In my terse letter, I demanded that they update my records and refund my overpayment of £20 immediately. A check duly arrived about 3 weeks later. No letter of apology or anything, just a check. I didn't hear from them ever again. Apply the rules to everyone, or else. Many eons ago, when I was 19 and a cashier at a grocery store, I wore and still wear a pentacle necklace on a choker. It's a small, understated pentacle, nothing garish or large, simple silver. Some well-meaning customers mistook it for a Star of David, which still makes me chuckle. My manager at the time called me into his office one day. For what, I had no clue, but it quickly became apparent to me. You need to remove that necklace. It's making customers uncomfortable. I look at him and smile. I'll be happy to remove my religious symbol. Pause. Beat. Ready to be quite compliant. As soon as you require everyone else to remove their religious symbols as well. I look at him, utterly calm and smiling. He stumbles. He mumbles a, "Never mind," and sends me back to the floor. I never had another word about my pentacle. I'm honestly not sure whether this is malicious compliance or petty revenge, but it felt more appropriate here. As you wish. Not sure if this is the correct sub, but definitely a FAFO situation. Background. To walk to the transit center, one must cross a big multi-directional intersection with an island in the center. Due to traffic volume flow, you can only cross halfway and onto the island and then wait for the next light change before proceeding all the way across. I, F, was standing on the island, waiting for the next light, and hear a distinct clank sound. I turn and see a young woman crossing the first part, wearing big noise-canceling type headphones, and with her head in her phone. Immediately behind her on the ground is a wallet-type keychain with keys and lanyard attached to it. I said, "Hey," no response, acknowledgement. Then, "Hey you," louder, still nothing. Now she's across the first part and standing a foot from me on the island. I wave at her and say, "Hey, you dropped," while pointing down at the wallet. But she rips her headphones off so fast and screams, "Don't talk to me, I have a boyfriend!" The light changes and she runs across the intersection. I didn't even bother to try again. She did say, "Don't talk to me." I look over my shoulder just in time to see the one-legged crack head on the corner, bending over in his wheelchair and scoop up that wallet keychain, and then propel himself away. My BF would never tell me when he'd be home. He was in financial planning, so he had no set hours, but he just wouldn't tell me, F25-ish at the time, if he was going to be home at 5 or 9, despite my asking for a heads up just so I wouldn't worry. Months go by, nothing changes. This is pre-everyone had a cell. He had a car phone. I set up a poker game with my friends, told my mom my plan because she is a hysterical worrier, and if he called her, I didn't want her to freak out. Didn't leave a note. I went to my friend's place to play cards and traipsed into our apartment around 4 a.m. He had gone to bed but couldn't sleep. He asked where I was. Me. Playing cards with friends. Him. Why didn't you call me? Me. Was I supposed to? I didn't think it was necessary. You never call me. The problem stopped. We never have time to do it correct, but we always have time to do it again. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I ran the mail department in a good-sized commercial printing company. Most of my day was filled with taking customer mailing lists and processing them so that they get discounts at the post office, but occasionally I produced consecutively numbered items, read raffle tickets. Now, raffle tickets are small, maybe 1 by 4 inches, too small to run to the machine by themselves. We decided to run them 4 across and 2 high, so 8 raffle tickets per sheet. I created a spreadsheet in Excel that had 8 columns, 1 for each raffle ticket position. The raffle tickets in this particular case were printed on a special type of paper that has a holographic background. Very expensive. The process of setting up the inkjet machine to print the 8 numbers in 2 spots on each raffle ticket is to find the appropriate XY position for the first ticket number to be placed on the customer portion, then copy that number to replaced on the part of the ticket that is ripped off and given to the administrators of the raffle. Now I have coordinates that I can extrapolate to the remaining 7 positions. Having copied and pasted the original 2 text boxes using extrapolated XY coordinates, they were all showing the exact same raffle number, the first row column in my spreadsheet. While I was going through the process of changing position 2 to reflect the data in the second column, position 3 to reflect the data in the third column, etc., my always-in-a-hurry manager showed up and, right in front of my entire department, yelled, "Why is this machine not running yet?" I was currently halfway through updating the 5th out of 8 tickets. I told him that it wasn't set up yet. I still had some work to do to get it ready. He looked at the screen and could see that there was data for all 8 tickets. All 16 positions had a text box associated. Never mind if the text box contained the correct data or not, they all had data associated. Happy to tell you, I pushed back hard. I didn't give him specifics, just that the setup was not complete and cannot be run as is. He asked, "I shit you not. What's it going to take to get this machine running right now?" "Easy. I'll simply comply." I handed him the last piece that came out of the machine. Mind you, positions 6, 7, and 8 all contained data for position 1, and position 5 was only half right, and said, "If you want to put your signature on this piece, we can run it right now, but I'm not signing off on it until I verify the accuracy of all 16 positions." The next day was hell. More special paper had to be purchased, delivered FedEx overnight 1 a.m. delivery, rush job to print and cut and deliver to my department, rush to imprint, correctly, positions 5 through 8, cut to final size, box and deliver to the customer. Job was late. We lost any profit we were looking forward to through overnight delivery, reprint, etc., etc., etc. I just smiled and did my job, never said a word, but the look on his face when he told me I had to redo half the job was priceless.